It was an ordinary day when my life first intersected with Akin's, though nothing about that day felt ordinary by the time it ended. I met his mother first, a warm, elegant woman whose pride in her son was woven into every conversation we shared during her hair appointments. Her house, perched on the edge of our quiet neighborhood, became a regular part of my life. I never imagined it would also be where my world would forever change. That day, as I arrived at her house, the air felt heavy, like a storm was brewing. I parked my car and walked up the familiar pathway when movement caught my eye. A man, tall, with a shadowed figure I didn't recognize, was crouched by the windows. His hands trailed along the sill, and he moved stealthily, his eyes scanning the interior. My heart pounded. "Who are you?" I called out, clutching the first thing I could find, a weathered piece of wood. The man turned toward me, startled at first, then smirking as if my presence was some kind of joke. "Leave now, or I'll call for help," I warned, my voice trembling but firm. Before he could respond, the door creaked open, and his mother stepped outside, her face a mixture of confusion and amusement. "What's going on here?" she asked. "Stay back," I shouted, shielding her from what I thought was a threat. The man raised his hands in surrender, laughing. "Relax. I'm not a thief." "Then who are you?" His smile widened. "I'm Akin. Her son." The word seemed to tip on its axis. Her son. The one I'd heard countless stories about? It rushed to my face as his mother's laughter joined his. I lowered the makeshift weapon, embarrassed and unsure whether to apologize or just vanish into the earth. But Akin, with his disarming charm, simply said, "It's good to know my mom has someone willing to defend her. You've got a warrior spirit." From that day, our paths crossed more often. Akin was magnetic, his laughter contagious, his presence commanding. Over time, what began as casual exchanges blossomed into something deeper. By the end of his holiday, he'd asked me to be his girlfriend. I refused at first, wary of the distance that would come when he returned abroad. But persistence, his and his mother's, won me over. When Akin loved, he loved completely. Our long-distance relationship thrived on daily calls, endless texts, and video chats that often lasted until dawn. He was attentive to a fault, remembering every detail I mentioned, no matter how small. When he returned home after graduating, he proposed within a month, and I said yes, swept up in the intensity of his devotion. Living together revealed just how deeply he adored me. Akin would rush home from work, often abandoning plans or responsibilities just to be by my side. Once, his car broke down, and instead of waiting for help, he walked miles just to get home faster. At first, his affection felt like a fairy tale. But then there were moments, little things that made me pause. Like the day I caught him in the laundry room. He was rummaging through my clothes, and I assumed he was about to start the wash. But then he picked up one of my panties, brought it to his nose, and inhaled deeply before carefully placing it back. I froze, unsure whether to laugh or feel alarmed. He didn't see me, and I never mentioned it. Later, curiosity drove me to search online, where I learned that some men do this to feel closer to their partners. I brushed it off, telling myself it was just another quirk of his obsessive love. But it didn't stop there. Last week, while cleaning his office, I stumbled upon an old, battered bag tucked into a corner. Its weight felt oddly familiar, as though it contained pieces of my past. Inside, my breath caught, clumps of my hair, 2 of my old panties I thought were lost, a used pad, earrings I hadn't seen in months, and even old toothbrushes I'd thrown away. My stomach churned. This wasn't just sentimentality. It felt deliberate. Ritualistic. When Akin came home that evening, his usual warmth felt stifling. Every touch, every smile carried a weight I couldn't name. I wanted to confront him, to demand answers, but something held me back. What if I didn't want to hear the truth? That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, listening to his steady breathing as questions gnawed at me. Who was the man I had married? Was this just an extreme form of love, or something darker? The next morning, I decided to test him, subtly. Do you ever keep things, like souvenirs? I asked over breakfast. He looked up, his expression unreadable. Why do you ask? No reason. Just curious. His lips curved into a small smile, but his eyes, they seemed to flicker with something I couldn't place. I'm trapped between love and doubt, between devotion and fear. Part of me wants to believe Akin's actions come from a place of pure, unbridled affection. But another part whispers that there's more to this story, something lurking beneath the surface, waiting to be uncovered. I haven't confronted him yet. Instead, I'm piecing together fragments of his behavior, searching for a pattern, a clue to explain what I found. But deep down, I know, the truth will change everything. A week passed, but the hidden bag remained etched in my mind. I couldn't focus on anything, each glance at Akin felt like staring into a puzzle with pieces missing. Did I truly know him? That evening, as the children played in the living room, Akin leaned over the dining table where I sat pretending to work. You've been quiet lately, he said, his voice soft. Is something wrong? No, I lied, avoiding his gaze. Just tired. He tilted his head, studying me. You're a terrible liar. The comments sent a chill through me. Was it affection or something else? Before I could respond, the lights flickered, a storm brewing outside had darkened the skies. I'll check the generator, Akin said, standing. As soon as he stepped outside, I hurried to his office, driven by an urge I couldn't explain. I opened the bag again, pulling out its contents with trembling hands. The toothbrushes, the earrings, the hair, why would anyone keep these things? A noise behind me made me jump. I turned sharply, clutching the bag to my chest. Akin stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. What are you doing? He asked, his voice calm but laced with something deeper. For a moment, words failed me. I found this, I stammered. Akin, what is this? Why do you have these things? He stepped inside, shutting the door behind him. The click of the lock sent my pulse racing. I was hoping you wouldn't find that, he said, his tone eerily steady. Why, Akin? This isn't normal. My voice rose, panic creeping in. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. It's not what you think. Then what is it? I demanded. He hesitated, then gestured for me to sit. I've always been drawn to you. From the moment we met, you were like a magnet, pulling me in. I couldn't explain it then, and I can't explain it now. Keeping these things, it's my way of feeling close to you, of holding on to you. I stared at him, my mind racing. But this, Akin, it feels obsessive. It's not just love, it's something else. He leaned forward, his eyes burning with intensity. You don't understand. You're my world, my anchor. Without you, I don't know who I am. His words should have been comforting, but instead, they felt suffocating. What about the hair? The pad? Akin, this isn't just sentimental. Is there something you're not telling me? His jaw tightened, and for the first time, I saw something raw in his expression, fear. There are things I haven't shared, he admitted. Things about my time abroad. About what I went through. I waited, my heart pounding. When I was studying in the States, I fell into a group, he said slowly. We were fascinated by the idea of connection, of tying ourselves to the people we loved. For some, it was harmless. But for others, it became more. I swallowed hard. And you? Where did you fall in that group? He looked away, his voice barely above a whisper. I didn't think it would follow me back here. But when I met you, it was like every part of me wanted to hold on, to never let go. The hair, the earrings, the other things, they are not just keepsakes. They are anchors. Pieces of you that keep me grounded. The room felt stifling, the air thick with unspoken truths. Akin, this isn't love. This is something else entirely. You need help. He stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. You don't understand. Everything I've done for us. For you. I backed away, clutching the bag. Akin, I love you, but this isn't healthy. You're scaring me. For a moment, his face crumpled, vulnerability breaking through the intensity. Don't leave me, he whispered. Promise me you won't leave. I hesitated, torn between the man I loved and the unsettling truth I'd uncovered. I won't, I said softly, though the words felt hollow. That night, I couldn't sleep. Akin held me close as though afraid I might disappear. His breathing was steady, but mine was shallow, my thoughts racing. I couldn't stay silent anymore, but I didn't know how to move forward. The next morning, I called his mother. She listened patiently as I recounted everything, the bag, the rituals, his confession. Her silence on the other end of the line was deafening. When she finally spoke, her voice was firm. You need to talk to someone about this. Akin, he's always been intense, but this sounds like it's gone too far. Her words solidified my resolve. For the sake of our children, for the sake of our marriage, I needed to confront this head-on. But as I hung up the phone, I noticed something chilling. My old journal, which had been tucked away in a drawer, was lying open on the table. Pages were flipped to moments I hadn't read in years, moments about Akin. Someone had been reading it. The sight of my old journal sprawled open on the table sent shivers down my spine. I hadn't touched it in years, it had been buried under forgotten things in the attic. Yet here it was, open to a page I didn't recall writing. The words on the page were unmistakably mine but seemed foreign, as if written in a haze. He is everywhere. He knows my thoughts before I speak them. Akin is not just a man, he's something more, something ancient and binding. I should be afraid, but I'm not. I'm his, completely, and I always will be. I slammed the journal shut, my heart pounding. What did this mean? Had I written it in some moment of delirium, or was it something else? I turned sharply when I heard footsteps behind me. Akin stood in the doorway, his face shadowed by the dim morning light. You found your journal, he said, his voice calm but carrying an undertone I couldn't place. Yes, I replied, clutching it tightly. Why was it out? I thought it might help you understand, he said, stepping closer. Understand what? I demanded, backing away. That our connection isn't just love, he said, his eyes intense. It's destiny. You felt it too, haven't you? From the moment we met, there was something bigger than us at play. I shook my head, my breath hitching. Akin, this isn't normal. Whatever this is, it's not healthy. You need help. His expression softened, and he knelt before me, his hands clasping mine. You think I'm obsessed, but it's more than that. I've tried to protect you from the truth, but maybe it's time you knew everything. I swallowed hard, dread pulling in my stomach. What truth? Akin took a deep breath, his gaze unwavering. When I was in the States, I was lonely. I fell in with a group, people who believed in the power of connection, not just emotionally but spiritually. They taught me rituals, ways to bind myself to someone completely. At first, I thought it was nonsense. But when I met you, everything they said made sense. You were the one. The only one. My throat felt dry, and I could barely whisper. What kind of rituals? He hesitated, his jaw tightening. They call it soul anchoring. It's not dark magic or anything, it's about keeping pieces of the person you love close to you, creating a bond that can't be broken. I stared at him in disbelief. You're saying you've anchored yourself to me? That's why you kept my hair, my... Yes, he interrupted, his voice urgent. It's not harmful, I swear. It's just, it makes me feel closer to you. Like no matter what happens, we are connected. I pulled my hands away, panic clawing at my chest. Akin, this isn't love. This is possession. You've bound yourself to me without my consent. It's not like that, he said, his voice breaking. I didn't mean to scare you. I love you so much, and I didn't know how else to keep you with me. I stood, the journal clutched tightly to my chest. This isn't love, Akin. This is obsession. And if you don't get help, I don't know if I can stay. His face crumpled, and for the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. You can't leave me, he whispered. If you leave, I'll fall apart. I turned away, unable to face him. I need time to think. That night, I slept in the children's room, claiming I wanted to keep them company during the storm. But the truth was, I couldn't bear to be near Akin. At around midnight, I woke to a strange sound, a faint whispering, like voices carried on the wind. I sat up, my heart pounding, and strained to listen. The whispers seemed to be coming from the direction of Akin's office. I crept out of bed and down the hall, each step careful and quiet. The door to his office was slightly ajar, and through the crack, I saw him. He was kneeling on the floor, surrounded by the items from the bag. My hair, my earrings, the toothbrushes, they were arranged in a circle around him. His lips moved silently, as if chanting, and the air in the room felt charged, electric. Akin, I whispered, my voice trembling. His head snapped up, and for a moment, I saw something in his eyes, something not entirely human. You shouldn't be here, he said, his voice low and resonant, as though it didn't belong to him. What are you doing? I demanded, stepping into the room. I'm protecting us, he said, rising to his feet. You don't understand the forces at play. If I don't do this, we could lose everything. What forces? I asked, my voice breaking. What have you gotten us into? He took a step closer, his expression both pleading and resolute. I did it for us. For you. But now it's too late to stop. The air around us grew heavy, and the whispers I'd heard earlier returned, louder this time. They seemed to echo in my mind, words I couldn't understand but felt deeply. And then the lights went out. The room was swallowed by darkness, the whispers growing louder until they felt like they were inside my skull. I stumbled backward, panic threatening to consume me, when suddenly, Akin's voice rang out, clear and strong. Stay with me, please. Don't leave. His words cut through the noise, pulling me back to the present. The whispers faded, and the air seemed to settle, though an uneasy stillness remained. Akin, I said, my voice trembling, you've gone too far. Whatever this is, whatever you've done, it's tearing us apart. He stepped closer, his face illuminated by the faint glow of the storm outside. I can stop, he said, desperation in his eyes. I'll end it, break the bond, if that's what you want. But I can't lose you. I won't survive without you. I hesitated, my heart torn. This man had given me everything, his love, his devotion, but at a cost neither of us had fully understood. I took a deep breath, searching for the strength to make a decision that could change everything. I reached out, taking his hands in mine. Akin, I love you. I always have. But we can't keep living like this. You need to let me go, not in your heart, but in this unnatural way. His grip tightened for a moment before he nodded. "I'll do whatever it takes to make things right." Together, we gathered the items from the circle. Akin explained how to undo the ritual, a process that required intent, love, and sacrifice. With each step, the air in the room lightened, and the oppressive whispers faded into silence. When it was done, Akin collapsed into my arms, tears streaming down his face. "I'm sorry," he whispered. I held him tightly. "We'll heal. Together." In the days that followed, Akin sought help, both from a therapist and a spiritual guide. He worked to understand his obsession and rebuild our relationship on healthier terms. It wasn't easy, but we made it. Years later, as we watched our children grow and thrive, I realized that love, real love, isn't about possession or control. It's about trust, respect, and the willingness to let go. The moral lesson in this story is that love must be built on mutual respect, trust, and freedom, not obsession or control. True love allows for individuality and personal growth, rather than binding someone against their will or prioritizing personal desires over their well-being. Obsession, even when born from deep affection, can lead to harm and destruction if not addressed. Additionally, the story teaches the importance of 1. Self-awareness and boundaries, recognizing when a relationship becomes unhealthy and taking steps to protect oneself. 2. Communication and healing, acknowledging problems and working to resolve them, whether through personal growth or seeking professional help. 3. The dangers of unchecked emotions, extreme attachment, even when motivated by love, can spiral into destructive behaviors if not tempered with understanding and balance. Ultimately, the story is a cautionary tale about the fine line between love and obsession and the necessity of prioritizing healthy, reciprocal relationships. If you have enjoyed this story, please support the channel by sharing to others and subscribing to the channel for more stories. Thank you.